It's not controversial to say that Pokemon is controversial. The series wouldn't have become the biggest franchise of all time without 2.5 decades worth of news stories and urban legends. And the banana dinosaur, that helped out quite a bit. While its old controversies were about the games being dangerous and satanic, the new ones are about how the games are just bad. Crazy how people will hate you one day for being a danger to society, and then the next they'll hate you just because you're ugly. Because of the state of the newer games, I often find myself going back to the older ones to get my Pokemon fix, but it never really seems to work out anymore. These are the games that are supposedly better than the modern ones, but the trade-offs in these games make them really hard to enjoy them now. Though it may seem hard to believe, I've grown up since I was 7, so my tastes have changed. But the issues in these games have always kind of bothered me. It wasn't until the 3D games fixed some of these shortcomings that dealing with them in the 2D games became increasingly difficult. This contrast has created a bit of a conundrum because some things were greatly improved while others were pretty much ruined. Now it feels like whichever game you end up playing, you're getting the short end of the stick on something really important. The 2D Pokemon games are always viewed with rose-tinted glasses that make everything really cool and not boring, but I'm gonna be honest, it's kinda hard to play these games now. I don't mean that as in, oh, these games are too hard, like give me a permanent exposure. I mean, it's hard to sit there and feel myself actively age while sitting through one battle. I feel like a lot of the people praising these games haven't played them in a little while, or maybe I'm just impatient.
No, you're right. This is way too slow. At this point, I'm just hoping this battle's over before my fucking funeral.
The 2D Pokemon games do have some really great strengths that keep me going through my playthroughs. First, the visuals. These games look great. The artwork is beautiful, and each game has so much character and charm. I'm not the biggest pixel art guy, so I don't feel comfortable commenting on that aspect of the game. Do you mind? Yeah, so the pixel art is great. The Pokemon sprites always feel so dynamic, and the colors and palettes really show off each one's personality. This subject has been beaten to death in regards to the newer games, so I'm just gonna show you Typhlosion. You're gonna clap for my bravery, and then we could just move on. We all know that Pokemon stories aren't always that deep, but the storylines in the 2D games always felt much more clear and grounded in that universe. The newer games feel like they're trying to one-up their predecessors, and personally, it makes the plots feel tacky and messy. Lastly, the 2D games are challenging. It's not always a steamroll. You gotta actually use your type advantages and battle every trainer to keep your Pokemon at the right level. There are parts that are a bit unfair and grindy, but it's never too bad. I will admit though that the spike between the last gym and the Elite Four is usually pretty steep, but it's kind of the point. I still often find myself losing interest near the end of the game because of this, so I will admit it's not perfect. It is, however, much better than the newer games where ripping a single fart will get you through the entire Elite Four. Even though the 2D Pokemon games were made for older, handheld hardware, they felt much more complete than the modern games. I know, what a hot take. The games had depth. They gave you a bit more freedom. They were actually challenging, and they looked great. Even with all that great foundation, playing 2D Pokemon can be pretty tedious. A big thing that you give up when playing these older games is a lot of quality of life improvements that the newer games introduced. For the nerds that IV and EV trained, this statistic was hidden in the older games, whereas now you could just check them whenever you want. The new games also allow you to access your PC anywhere, easily remember and delete moves, easily rename your Pokemon and run indoors. Suck a fart, Mr. Mosby, I'm gonna run in your lobby, I don't give a shit. After the first round of 3D games, Game Freak also got rid of their traditional implementation of HMs, which was an outdated mechanic by like the 3rd generation. I really like how it's implemented now, where you still need to progress through the story to unlock new areas of the map without having to waste move slots on these shitty attacks that you can't delete, even though you could teach them an unlimited amount of times, unlike the TMs in that game. Okay, chill bro, it's just Pokemon. And against my doctor's orders, I'm also gonna mention random encounters. This might be the biggest thing that ruins the majority of Pokemon games, I cannot believe they brought it back in 2021. It ruins the flow of the games. Using repels isn't a solution. That's like using a band-aid for a baby's diaper. You're just gonna get blasted in the face with shit when you least expect it. Being randomly assaulted by a slow-ass battle I don't want to partake in never fails to make me not want to explore. I want to see the wild Pokemon and not be jump scared by 50 Zubats when my repel wears out for 2 steps. I understand why some of these limits are in place. Having your moves be somewhat permanent makes choosing each one much more deliberate. But not being able to access your PC anywhere, rename your Pokemon easily, and check their freaking stats is ridiculous. Some of these issues are fixed in the 3D games while others remain. The redundancy of the multiple text screens during a battle warning you that your Pokemon is paralyzed and then warning you that your Pokemon has chlamydia is still around, and it's still monotonous. It's not about the games being 3D, it's about Game Freak holding on to outdated and annoying game mechanics because a lot of these drawbacks aren't game breaking, but when you add them all up, it makes playing these games not so fun. Again, I like Pokemon, I'm a Pokemon head, but I just don't have patience for these things anymore. This isn't a case of old good and new bad, because a lot of the new is good. The battles are snappier and the games are just less infuriating to play overall. But they just don't scratch that itch. I don't think it's wrong to say that the older games just felt more like an adventure. The regions felt more alive and realistically laid out, and you weren't constantly swarmed by a bunch of ugly ass kids telling you what to do and where to go throughout the entirety of the game. There was a challenge and a purpose in getting better. I'm pretty sure these games would be Ninja approved. With all this considered, it's still hard to choose which game is best. I replayed Heart Gold Soul Silver a year ago and just never finished it because it got kind of tedious. I played through Brilliant Diamond and same issue. Low-key fuck that game. Then I got Pokemon Violet and played it more than any other Pokemon game in the past few years and actually beat the game. Thanks, Mom. She's still proud of me for that one. I know the game's got its bugs and it's ugly, but it captured that feeling of adventure that the older games had. It gave me much more freedom than ever before, and I was able to choose through different storylines I wanted to pursue, and I was genuinely interested in all of them. It also improved upon a lot of those quality of life features that even some of the 3D games had. I think it's a really good starting point. A for effort, let's make a full game this time. And it's a positive direction for the game series overall. Right now I'm playing through Black and White 2, and I feel like it has a pretty decent mix between the good and the bad aspects of the games. It still doesn't feel like the best that Pokemon can be though. The series just isn't as black and white as it seems. Yep. I like the designs of the older generations of Pokemon before the bobbleheads and the furries took over. But I like the pacing and the way the battles are now. I like the older music, but I like the newer gameplay. Everything is a compromise. Just like life. It feels like they should just modernize the older games, but that didn't really work out last time. And I know you probably have a title in your head that you think is the best, but take a second to just think about it. Isn't it the one that you played when you were 10 years old? It feels like every game is absolutely despised when it releases, but every time a game hits its 10th year anniversary or so, the community praises it as some sort of hidden gem that was Pokemon at its absolute best. Most series have a specific game that the majority of the community agrees is the best, but for Pokemon, the answer is not so clear. Or right. We'll probably discover aliens that are sexy or create Minecraft 2 before the Pokemon community can agree on which games is the best, or which games are even good. After all that straight smack I talked on the series, it may seem like Pokemon just isn't for me and I should go hiking or something instead. And to that I say, I already went biking earlier, but thanks for the concern. Like I said, I'm a Pokemon head. I love enslaving these things. I just feel like as I've gotten older, my tastes have changed, but not in the way that you would think. I actually enjoy the games more now because I actually know what's going on, but I just have much less patience for the bullshit that's in these games. I actually loved the newest installments, but I hated the remakes that came right before them. The 2D games are more sentimental to me. The DS era is when I was obsessed with Pokemon, so I thought I'd automatically just like those games more. Playing the newer games, then going back to the older ones made me realize that deciding which game is best isn't that easy, and each one has its strengths and weaknesses. I know it seems dumb, but it feels like there should be a definitive version for a game series that's known for being so repetitive and formulaic. The truth is though, I've been giving the series a lot less credit than it deserves, and it's so much more nuanced than we all make it seem. I'm excited for the future of the series, but what I think it really needs is just more time to develop. The older games were made for much simpler hardware, yet they were given the same amount of time, if not more time, to develop. I know the motto of the series is 1 step forward, 2 steps back, but maybe it doesn't have to be. Pokemon has so much potential to improve with each installment, or at least have an installment that's just good and not so freaking controversial. Let's all just grab our Pokeballs and throw them at that subscribe button because we need it to fight other animals for us to make money. Thanks for watching.